Hello and good afternoon. I'm really excited today to be having a conversation with April Shippy from Intentional Money Coaching. And this is something we haven't done in a while, but we are wanting to bring somebody on here to talk about such a huge aspect for women who come from domestic abuse is finances. So I'm excited to have her here today. And while everybody's joining us, we're getting ready to introduce her and let her tell a little bit more of her background. If you want to drop in the comments where you are watching from and why you're excited about this video today. April and I am sorry I'm a little bit late. Oh, hi, Heather. We were just talking about you. We are a little bit
Good
late. I
thing.
just started talking to her, and the whole time we're just going away. She's such an amazing person with such a huge heart for survivors. And we were just talking about finances, and I'm so excited to share her wisdom with you. You are going to love her. So I will go ahead and let her introduce herself.
Hello, I'm April. I started on my journey of learning about domestic violence abuse awareness 2 years ago, 3 years ago. Really digging into it. I'm taking advocacy classes, courses, just a general understanding of it, and help facilitate a support group and do my intentional money coaching. I learned coaching because I wanted to help people with finances, but then my heart kept getting drawn to survivors. And so instead of working with a general population, I focus on working with survivors now. So that's kind of who I work with on a one-on-one basis.
Awesome. And that's so needed, as we were mentioning, for survivors, because most people who come out of domestic abuse start in the negative. We don't even start in the positive. Usually it's negative through a lot of times through lawyer fees, through maybe they find, I've talked to a lot of women, their husbands have backed up tax credits or
Mm-hmm.
tax debt in their name and all types of stuff. So it's a huge complex problem, and that is your specialty. So I'm excited to dig a little bit deeper and kind of encourage women who are watching this that you can start over. That's why she and I got late. We just got passionate and started talking about this, and it's just like, no, you can start over, and you can build again, and you can find skill sets, and you can start. Even though sometimes when you're in that, I think sometimes like your belief in yourself feels so low that
Mm-hmm.
you just think, I can't do this, I can't start over, I'm incapable. You know, all the things that your abuser has spoken to you sits in the back of your mind. But these women become some of the most powerful, driven women in the workforce, because to overcome those things is just such strength from God required to say, you know what, I am not who they said I am. I am a child of God, and I can do exactly whatever God has called me to do. And I'm going to go for it. I'm going to fight, and I'm going to learn. And I was telling her, so we were talking for a long time, like, I started over with sorry, we're getting lost here on subject, but I started over like I only have a Bible college education. And so for me, I started writing over 3 years ago. And yes, it was through much tears that I have learned and researched, but I'm so excited because there is ways you can start over. And that's what she and I were talking about today. Is I had an unexpected, replace all my tires, but I have reserve, so it's okay. So I'm excited because I want to know that you can get there too. You can be there. You
Mm-hmm.
can build. You can start over. I am promise you, I've been there. So I am looking forward to this, and I will get to the subject of the questions now. So if you have any questions too while you're watching, please drop them over in the comment section, and we'll be happy to answer them. What is the first step one should do to prepare to rebuild after domestic abuse?
Well, it's important to remember that um, money is money. It is what it is. It's a tool to use. However, there are so many emotions that get wrapped up in it, and so we need to be aware of where our emotions are, where past traumas are can be attached to with money, even from childhood, the way you view money, the there's a lot of things that just being aware of. And when you're going through a divorce or a difficult situation like that, there's a lot of emotions that are going to try to point you in what direction for how you use your money. So a lot of times that I suggest for people when they're wanting to prepare to build to the preparation area is to have a team around you, be grounded, just like in every other aspects of your trauma healing or wherever you are in that situation, having wounded trauma within relationships, you want to find healthy, safe relationships to that will also help repair those wounds. Because if you're harmed in relationship, you heal in relationship. And that even goes with your finances, of finding people that can keep you grounded, help you talk through and be like a realist kind of a friend, or someone you can just bounce ideas off of, so that you're not making decisions around your finances in a bubble. But I know a lot of times finances in and of itself can be shameful, or you feel like it makes you feel a certain way and it makes it really difficult to talk about. So finding people in those niches who can sit with you trauma informed and allow you to have a conversation about money in a safe environment, I feel like is very important first step. So a lot of times, you have your lawyer, you have your therapist, um, like even a professional financial planner can help at times,
Mhm.
depending on your situation. But also just having like a recovery support team is important for all types of recovery. But even with money, like I found a list where they listed it out as create. So there's a C is your champion cheerleader, someone who's and then an encourager. So this, I do it in order. Champion cheerleader, someone who's on your team, they're really supporting you and encouraging you. But then there's also the realist, the one who you can talk to about the nitty gritty and get to the foundation. And then like an encourager, just someone who's there to fill you because you're so empty from the abuse. And then the accountability partner, someone who's going to help you work on a budget, who's going to help you, talk through those things. And so you're not isolating yourself. Maybe even like a travel buddy or someone you do fun things with, and then empower somebody else with what you learn. So it's not relying on just one person to help you, and it's not just you can't be everything to everybody else. And that way you have a person you can go to. Okay, you're my realist person, I really need to get down in the details here, or I just need someone to encourage me, I can do this, that type of thing. So having a team around you, I think, is very important.
Yes, I love that. And thank you for sharing that about trauma and finances. Yes, definitely can trigger trauma. We will
Mhm.
have a conversation about this sometime. I plan on continuing to bring it back April. Um, she and I just really connected. She's an amazing person who really emulates our Heart Call to Peace Ministries as well. Uh, but trauma lives on in our bodies, as we know, and sometimes finances, especially if you've been abused, there's usually if you're come from domestic abuse, there's usually always financial abuse. And
Mhm.
so that stuff, when that money gets to a certain level, can also bring over those fears, or if there's big expenses and you go back to different methods. Maybe you didn't eat a lot when you're in domestic abuse because you didn't have the money for food. And so you go back to starving yourself because you don't think you have the money for food. I know these are real problems. So I know when you start seeing these triggers come and you start being fearful of not being able to provide, that's when you need to reach out to other people around you too, as you mentioned,
Mhm.
get support and to deal with the trauma as well.
Even
Because
childhood, the way you grew up in your childhood around money will inform. It may have been compounded with your marriage or abusive relationships, but even your childhood trauma can be part of the conversation.
yes, most definitely. And that's where I would recommend a therapist to come in and
Mhm.
bring them in and to let them help, because no matter how much money you have, that trauma will
Mhm.
never go away. It will always be there. And as soon as
Right.
you get to that point again, that triggers are all out and you're back not eating or whatever it is because you're fearful of
Mhm.
not having for your kids, or whatever the trigger is.
Mhm.
um, Definitely be aware of that. And I'm glad you pointed that out, because a lot of women don't recognize that or don't know really what's happening and why
Mhm.
certain trigger them the way they do.
Yeah.
And so I see a question coming in. Do you want to answer that or continue with our questions, or we can answer them at the end?
Probably at the end, because
Okay.
it'll give me some time to think about too. But I see we were talking about
Yeah.
that earlier too, so that one should be.
Yes. So, questions that we have, please keep asking them. We will answer them
Uh-huh.
at the end of our conversation here. What is what is a critical aspect of rebuilding that is often overlooked?
Collecting information. I am a big believer of you can't fix if you don't know what to call it. Um, you have a feeling of you're just kind of floating around in space. There's these problems. It's overwhelming. I can't call it anything because I don't know what it is. So, but once you kind of figure out what am I experiencing, what is my, you know, what's on my credit report? Was my did my husband or spouse or whoever, boyfriend or whoever, steal my identity and pull out a credit card in my name and I don't even know about it? That kind of thing happens as well with financial abuse. So just getting a foundation of this is what my reality is. It may not be what I want it to be, but
Mm.
to have to understand what your reality is. And then there's a lot of resources out there even online, like Fidelity has a divorce whole section on their website of what to do when you're going through a divorce. They may not necessarily be excuse me, trauma informed, but it's information around finances. Like the Allstate Foundation has um, more. They have a whole area for domestic abuse victims, trying to educate them in financial literacy. There's a wife.org, that's Women's Institute for Financial Education. So that is empowering women with finances. And then, the government has benefits available to women to fill that gap between losing whatever you had income wise before and then reestablishing for yourself. So that's nothing to be ashamed of. There are resources available. Sometimes those resources, if you're connected with the domestic violence shelter in your county, you have better access to, just because they can already vet out or whatever. And so it gives you better access, but it depends on county by county how a lot of those things work. But just, and if having those resources available, that can be overwhelming for
Mhm.
people, just having a ton of information coming at them too. So having a friend who's willing to sit with you, can you watch these videos with me and help me take notes? Or like what I do with my coaching is I will, if a woman wants to sit down with me and that's what we need to go through, we'll go through that together. Or we can go through a budget and then be an accountability partner and just help her go through it with a fine tooth comb and really understand, if I make this decision about this thing, these are the consequences or the outcomes that could be happen, and really understand, okay, now I can make a decision because I've taken one baby step at a time instead of looking at it as a huge, I don't know where to start kind of a thing. So
Yes.
that's where I go with information is good, but it can be overwhelming. So sometimes having someone there with you can help too.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing all that information as
And I
well.
can put links afterwards too about
That would be wonderful.
resources.
Thank you. You mentioned so
Mhm.
many wonderful sites that is helpful there for women. And sometimes these women coming out just don't even know these things are available to
Mhm.
them. So thank you
Well,
for sharing all that and
and
bringing that.
sometimes it's not safe to go to the websites. Sometimes it's not, depending on their level of safety,
Hmm.
maybe just I'm going to talk to my friend on Zoom, or I'll go have something and talk to them in person, where looking at a website might get you in trouble or something. So depending on each person's level of safety, trying to think of different ideas of how to get the information too.
Yes. And then my final question for you is, what is the most important thing one needs to know about rebuilding financially after abuse?
And I think it comes back around again to emotions are a lot of times the most difficult part. Everything is changed, and depending on how it came through the divorce settlement, like if you're on the other side of it, you didn't know beforehand, you couldn't really make too many plans. So you're kind of in this holding pattern until what the court says is going to happen on what money, child support, alimony, whatever it is. Then now you're, you know, so you didn't have time to prepare for it. Now you're just kind of like, what, all these emotions are going on in the middle of everything. It's already hard enough to get a divorce, and then trying to think about what's going to happen afterwards sometimes can be a lot. So just understanding your emotions are going to be huge. And again, that's where that support system can come in and help you talk through things and really have some more guidance and grounding in that. But seeking to establish that strong foundation, like know what's on your credit report. That's what a credit report is, just telling you what debt you have in your name. And your credit score just tells how good you are at paying it back. So it's not saying, like, if I have a bad credit score doesn't mean you're necessarily bad with money. It just means that you've had some issues, probably related with the financial abuse of paying your debt on time. That's all
Mm-hmm.
that means. It doesn't mean you're a bad person. Having a high score doesn't mean that you're a good person. It's just
Yep.
how good you are at paying your debt back. So if you don't have a debt and you pay cash everything, you're going to have no score. So that doesn't mean you're a bad person. So a lot of times people put their ability to do finances based on how good their score is. And I just want to separate that a little bit. Um, and then, keep your team around you. And then as you grow and learn, you might need to change your team. All right, it's not official. Hey, you want to be on my team kind of thing, but you also don't want to rely on one person to be that only source for everything. And so,
Mm-hmm.
like, I found this person, and she seems really good with her finances. Maybe I can learn from her, and she can mentor me for this season, or something along those lines. Be open to having those conversations where you feel safe to do so. And then, like, I have found having like a dream session, like a dream, like thinking about your dreams and goals for what I want my life to look like. If everything went perfectly, what would my life look like in the next 5 to 10 years? What would I want to buy a house, or I want to be able to pay off my car completely. I
Mm-hmm.
want to be able to make X amount of money so that I can save towards retirement or something like that. Um, but listing out those goals and having your accountability partner figure out, dream your goals, and then break it down to how would I get there. And then once you're making a decision at the grocery store, you're making decisions about signing up for the new cell phone. Like, you're having these ideas of, is this going to help me get to that goal, or am I just spending because it's a trauma response, or am I?
Wow.
And then weigh the consequences, because your emotional mental health is important too. I'm not saying that everything should be driven by finances, but to know what the give and take are of making a decision, if that's going to support you, or if you're just going to feel bad about it later.
Yes. Wow, that's really good. And I think when you have goals, it helps you curb your spending a little bit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because if you don't have any goals, you're just like, oh, I'm just enjoying life. And then you're
Yeah.
like, oh, I now need to make some goals.
Yeah. Yeah. The money it'll go where it goes. And I try to encourage women to, you decide where the money goes. Don't let the money decide where it goes. It's going to go somewhere. I mean, we learn in the Bible how it can be used for good or bad, and it's very easily used. Like, if we aren't intentional, which is where I got my name from, but if we aren't intentional with where our money is going, it's just going
Hmm.
to go away. And so I'm just trying to help women to become more intentional about the decisions they're making, not necessarily because it's the best dollar sign, result, which is mostly what we hear, in most money stuff. But a lot of times, your recovery right immediately, your mental health is going to be super important too. So that needs to be weighed with the consequences or benefits or whatever.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing all that. That is, wow, really good and very helpful, I'm sure, for a lot of women watching today. And if we want to go to the question here, this
Yes.
is what now we're talking about. What would you say to the woman who has no skills because she was a stay-at-home mom who didn't work outside the home?
That's kind of like what we were talking about
Yes.
before we got on, when we got on a few minutes late. But that happens a lot. And but some of the things, like Lauren was saying, you picked up writing jobs with a
Hmm.
magazine and started, or you with substitute teaching, just getting something on your
Yeah,
resume.
that was
And
5 years ago. I started,
yeah,
subbing just to have. I
so
felt like God said, "Yeah, get employment on your record." So I said, "Okay,
yeah,
God."
so it could be just starting out with, getting something on your resume and showing that you're a reliable employee, and working through maybe taking a course at a university, just how to use Word and Excel, and being able to explain, a lot of the things that women have experienced, even stay-at-home moms, they are organizing, they're managing, they're project managers, they're chefs, they're doing all sorts of skills within their home, and being able to communicate that to a potential employer, just getting your foot in the door is sometimes what you need. Or if you have the more entrepreneurial spirit of doing multiple things and creative, and it's depending on what you're healing, you're finding who you are and what your giftings are, and
Mm-hmm.
then tagging on the, how can I get some income from this? Maybe it's temporary, maybe it's whatever, but like selling some of your crafts that you do or different things. But even just getting one, or you can audit classes at colleges and take one course just to get, I've get up to date on things and then move on. But like you said, just getting something on your resume is good. Even I know network marketing has exploded over the pandemic because you can do it from home, and there's been a lot of success from that. And then some people, they're like, that's not for me. But there's a lot of skills you can learn through that process, and like self development. So that could be a side thing to something you don't really want to do, but it's paying the
Mm-hmm.
bills. And then do something for yourself on the side where you're actually developing some skills that you can market for a future job too.
Absolutely. And yes, I mean, even most schools are hiring
Yeah.
substitute teachers. So if you are a homeschool mom, a lot of the moms here are, that's a good way to get employment on your record is to start subbing. Even if it's 1 day a week, it puts employment on your record and it shows that you're paying in taxes and you qualify for more things when you're paying for taxes if you're needing
Mhm.
support and things like that. I do have had friends have gotten very successful multi-level marketing. I mean, I'm not saying that's not a good thing. I think you
Mhm.
can be, but be very cautious with that too, because
Yeah.
it is not, unless you're making a certain amount, you're not putting employment on your record. You don't have the benefits. And
Yeah.
sometimes these multi-level marketings can peak really fast and they can drop really fast. And then all
Yeah.
your income, it just
Yeah.
doesn't sustain itself. So I
But
think
you
it's a
can
great
use it
time to
as
get
like a
in.
skill building time too. Like
Yes, a skill building time. Yes.
yes, but
Go
it
ahead.
depends on which company, what group you're with. There's a lot of things to consider if you're going to do that type of thing as a skill building.
Yes, and so I mentioned here being a caregiver. Definitely, there's nursing assistant programs that you can take to learn to be a CNA, like a caregiver. There's all types of programs that you can do through a community college that is short. Maybe you're doing multi-level marketing to bring in some income selling crafts while you're getting maybe a 2-year certificate that will bring you in more money. Um,
Mhm.
and so something that's on my mind is don't enter. Sorry, my words are getting tangled here. Don't underestimate the time it takes to build skills. It's not going to be overnight. So don't get frustrated with yourself within a year if you're like, I'm not where I want to be financially or able to get the job I want financially. Like sometimes like skills take 2 to 3, sometimes 5 years to really be able to get a very good niche under your belt. And sometimes it just takes time. So it's just maybe you're constantly looking when you're looking for jobs, look for things that continually build that skill set that where you're going. So it's a
Mhm.
constant different aspects of that skill set that you're learning, and it makes you more and more marketable
Mhm.
for what you have to offer.
Yeah, and meeting with other people that you see who are successful in areas that you are interested in. Like if it's a friend or somebody in your community, asking them, can I ask you some questions? How does this work for you? Like what do you need to do with this kind of a job? And, it's kind of like, I feel like it might feel like I'm back in high school kind of a thing, trying to figure things out. But do you as like a single mom has so many skills. I just feel like sometimes they don't realize how they can be applied in other businesses, or a way to do your own, like working for another company. That sometimes just talking to somebody about how they do their work, you're like, I can do that. Like I do that all day long with my kids. I didn't even realize that that was a skill that I could be paid for
Mhm.
at a job. So just sometimes just opening, like allowing, like freeing up what you would assume would be the best for you, trying to be more open for what's out there that you can actually use. You have a lot of skills. Being a
Yeah.
stay-at-home mom is, it's a big deal.
Yes, it is. That's awesome. Thank you for, yes, somebody saying too, there's so many opportunities now for online stuff.
Mhm.
Definitely. so many opportunities to work from home if you're a single mom, so you can avoid childcare cost, and that's always true too. That's a very
Mhm.
good point.
But like if you're doing a side hustle, even if you're not doing it necessarily for the income, but more for the skill set, like if you have a babysitter because you have an event planned, you can have that written off for your taxes. Not that that's a huge, that's not a moneymaker, but there are some benefits to having your own business. But like you said, on the other hand, it's weighing the cost about, you're not paying taxes, you're not contributing to like your social security benefits or anything like that. But it might be you're going to spend the money anyway. You might as well have this business where you can write it off and not pay as much as you normally would in taxes or something like that. But that's very unique to the situation and for the skill sets and the goals that the person has.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, this was such a good conversation today. I have like been inspired and learned a lot. I'm like, oh, I feel renewed, and I'm like, oh, this is great, and encouragement. And I hope that was for everybody else is watching as well, that you feel encouraged and know that no matter where you are at today, you can be in a totally different place in a year if you just put yourself out there and start learning skill sets and take that step towards becoming financially independent and
Yeah.
rebuilding.
And I saw a comment, it's like, it is scary. It really is. And we're not trying to minimize that at all.
Oh,
But the
yes.
freedom on the other side and seeing how far you've come, and just that can be so healing. And there's so much to be gained, but you do have to walk through the hard things. It's just who do you have there supporting you with you as you walk through it too.
Yes, absolutely. Friends are so important to cheer you along, and mentors that are skilled in finances that can help you think through things are very important. And we're
Or
grateful
even
for you.
like an online community. Like if you don't have
Yes.
somebody physically close by you feel safe with, finding the support online too can be very helpful.
Yes, absolutely. Well, I don't see any more questions. So thank you so much for joining us. And if you're watching this later and you have a question, just drop it in the comments below and I can tag April in it and she can come and answer it as well. So if somebody wants to get in touch with you, what's the best way they can reach you?
Well, Facebook, if since we're on here on Facebook, I have my personal page, and then I have my business page. But either way, you can message me directly, and I can I'm going to put some links in for those other things, and I'll put my website on there too. And there's on my
Awesome.
website, there's a button on there where you can click to just do a complimentary consultation. It's 30 minutes to get to know each other, what I offer, what what your situation is, and see if we're a good fit. And if we're not a good fit, I'm totally fine. I don't pressure at all. And I don't reach out, oh, you ready? Are you ready? Are you ready? Or anything like that. When you're ready, you can contact me. I want just to be a resource available to help you if that seems to work for your situation. So I'll put my website on there and they just click the button and make a schedule appointment too if they like.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And thank you again for your time today. And I look forward, she'll be back in the middle of June and we'll be discussing, and we also have a date planned for July. So I'm looking forward to all of our interviews.
Thank you. Thank you so much for asking me to be on here.
Absolutely. Thank you so much again for everybody who joined us today. We hope you have a wonderful weekend.
Thank you.
Bye.